Welcome to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Victoria Roberts-Drogin. Thank you for joining us today. Vincent, in 2014, over 21 million Americans aged 12 and older battled substance abuse. Tragically, only 1 in 10 with a substance abuse problem receives the help that they need.
There is clearly a drug epidemic in this country. Families are being devastated by the opioid and heroin addiction. But there is hope.
Today, we will talk to a parent whose son is struggling with addiction. And we will learn about Talbot House in Bohemia, New York, which offers treatment options to help them. Fighting Addiction, Part 1, next on Family Comes First. Addiction is an ongoing condition that triggers an individual to compulsively search out and use substances. This will often continue regardless of the repercussions. People battling addiction often experience loss of friends, jobs, and housing, as well as negative physical and mental health effects.
Today on Family Comes First, we welcome Eileen Boyle, whose son Timothy has been battling addiction. Also joining us is Terry Kroll, who is a fierce advocate in the fight against drugs. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
both. Thank you. So, tell us about your son. Tell us about Tim.
Tim was a type of person in high school. He never drank, never used drugs, was afraid of drugs. And after our daughter died of bacterial meningitis, he couldn't deal with it. And his friends saw that he was depressed, and he was offered cocaine, and he liked the feeling. And it went on from there.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
We're so sorry that you're having to go through this, and the loss of your daughter had to be tragic.
Tragic. So we were blinded by grief, so we were not aware of his use. So all the signs and warning signs were hidden.
Well, you were dealing with something else.
Trying to breathe.
Huge.
Yeah.
When did you first become aware of
You know, I'm trying to remember, because it was the way he was acting. He was acting different, because he struggled with ADHD, and I know that's an issue for him. And I found out later that cocaine makes him think better and clearer. And it took us a while to find the signs, and I can't remember the beginning. But then we started seeing things missing, and still believing that. We weren't the type of family to steal from each other. No one ever did that. We always respected each other's things. So this was foreign to us, and we couldn't believe it. So when we saw it after seeing through grief, we didn't believe it. And so we just let it go on for longer. The big thing was never thinking that Timmy would sell my husband's guitar at a pawn shop. Pawn shops, I hate. I've had to go back a few times to get things.
Wow. How old was Tim when this all started?
Tim was 23, almost 23. Kate died on her 20th birthday, and Timmy was 2.5 years older.
And you have 2 other children?
I have one other daughter, Erin.
Daughter.
Yes.
And she's younger?
And she's younger than Kate. Yes, she's now she's 27.
What steps did you start to take to try to help him once you became aware of this?
Awareness is one stage, and trying to get help, I didn't know what to do.
It's hard to find help.
Not only is it a big secret, Terry, you know, you don't know what to do, and you're embarrassed, and wait, this is our son. Like, this is the things you hear and read about coming into our home.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, when it enters your own home, and you have to, the first thing you have to do is decide that you're going to be open and outgoing about it. Because if you're not, finding help is impossible. And so then when you reach out for help, you reach out to somebody who has either experienced what you're going through or works in the field and can help you navigate this treacherous road. It's
Right.
it's awful.
I do remember getting help from my sister who's a social worker, and she was able to reach out and help me find things, because I was blinded. I didn't know anything about
Right, you're struggling.
drug use.
Well, and your situation was doubly impacted.
Yeah.
And I could see how denial
Denial is
comes in
huge,
play
yeah.
because you have a loving family.
Loving family.
You know, you
Right, good kids.
Yeah, good kids.
Our kids are
Yeah.
good kids.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this happens to good kids.
Right.
And like you said, being open. When you start to take those steps, do they work? What happens next?
There's this community that they're out here to help people because we've experienced ourselves, or we work in the field. And once you connect to that community, there is a lot of help, but there's still struggles. There's a lot of struggles to meet, and so in Eileen's case and John, a lot of the issue is to accept the help, reach out for the help, which Eileen reached out a couple of years ago to me, and then find out what's there, because it's not like it's not the diseases of 50 years ago where, you know, okay, you reach out to the doctor and the doctor helps you and you do what you can. This is something you have to navigate on your own.
Yeah. And it seems
Up until recently, I would say.
and
Right.
it seems it's a lifelong challenge.
It's a lifelong challenge. Yes, it's once you get bitten by the disease, it stays harbored in your body for life, and it's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
For Timmy,
So I understand he's been in a
in
number
and
of
out,
different
many
rehabs.
and he does good, and Tim is back, and then over time we lose him again.
And it's not because he doesn't want the help.
He doesn't want the help sometimes. That he thinks he could do it himself.
I see.
And that's another wall, barrier to address, because he thinks he can do it. You've met Timmy.
Yeah.
He's wonderful, but he's stubborn, and you know.
He's protective of his parents as well, and that's always
Tell
an
us
issue.
everything. Yeah.
He doesn't tell.
He doesn't
you
want
know,
to upset us anymore.
the family has gone through quite a bit of turmoil. So to let John and Eileen and his sister know that, you know, everything, that's hard for him to accept.
So he's
that
protecting you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you had to, I don't say advice because I don't think it's a word that fits here. Who has advice, you know? But something that you could say to other parents who may not be as far down along this road. What could you say to them to comfort them, or to encourage them, or to just?
What I think of, what I don't have to offer is the answer, because there is no one answer. Every case is different. What I can often suggest is never to give up on them. And there's times where you want to, trust me. There's times where you just wonder, like, I don't care if you die.
Because it's gotten that far. Right.
But your love is too strong.
Yes, and
Right.
you don't give up.
Yeah.
You don't give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get that feeling, and then as a mom, you'll do whatever. You know, as a parent, you'll do whatever.
Well, you know, we get frustrated with our kids for all sorts of reasons, you know, and coming back to that position is.
Yeah.
But if I was gonna suggest something to a family like Eileen's family, the perseverance is one thing, but to be able to speak openly with whoever, because you never know that person that might say, "Oh, you know what? I have a friend who does family counseling. Why don't I hook you up with them?"
That would be you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have I know of a place you can go upstate, or you know,
Something.
or right,
Something
exactly,
you haven't
'cause
tried.
There, in every little pit of our area, there's someone that has experienced good and bad of all this.
So many barriers, so many walls, rehab centers, there's no beds, waiting lists, insurance. There's so many reasons why Timmy didn't get the help for so long either as well.
Is there anything else that you would say to parents?
A lot of shunning went on. People are afraid of addicts. So you're not invited to things, or you don't want to go because they talk about their kids and you don't want to talk about yours. So there is a lot of isolation, and that's a hard part, and
It's
it doesn't help
lonely.
in therapy. It doesn't help in recovery.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your willingness to come on today and
course.
sharing your son with us, and our hearts
Anything
go
I could
out to
do.
you,
Yeah.
really. And we're there
'Cause it's
for you.
hard.
We all
really
need to
hard.
support each other. And thank you, Terry, for being
Absolutely.
an advocate and being here today
my
with
mom's
us
job.
as well.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on Family Comes First, Fighting Addiction.
Welcome back to Family Comes First. When someone is dependent on drugs and tries to stop, they will experience withdrawal, which can be extremely uncomfortable and even dangerous.
Thank God there are crisis centers available. The Talbot House is a 24-hour voluntary chemical dependence crisis center, which provides short-term medically monitored inpatient withdrawal services to adult men and women who are in crisis.
With us now is Tony DeFelice, the program coordinator at Talbot House. Welcome, Tony.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Tony.
Good to be here.
And now we're going to take a look at our visit to Talbot House.
There's 2 crisis centers on Long Island. One is New Hope, and we're Catholic Charities Talbot House. We actually take in people who have drug addictions, and you know, we're like the starting out phase, and we send people to different spots where they need to be.
I've been here since 1982, and when I first came, we were basically called a crisis center. We took over for the 1976 repeal of the public intoxication law. So we would go around and pick up people at night in different towns. We'd admit them into Talbot House, and the next morning they would leave. 1985 we changed in that we started to keep the clients for a longer period of time than overnight. And it has evolved where we even keep them longer at this point in time for different parts of treatment, not only for rehab, but for sober housing and intensive outpatient, for long-term treatment, and for treatment up in St. Christopher's Inn. So we have evolved from being basically what used to be called a drunk tank to a medically monitored crisis center. The criteria is you have to be 18 years old, and we do a screening on the phone. We ask medical questions, we ask psychiatric questions to see if you can meet the criteria to come in here and be not at risk for any medical or psychiatric issues. We take alcohol or cocaine, pot, heroin, so a person will call up, and if they're 18 years, 8 to 80, doesn't matter how old they are, if their criteria, they can meet the criteria, they will be brought in to be assessed, and the nurse will make the final determination if they're coming in.
Well, I have a problem with alcohol and drugs, and I've been here more than once, been here quite a few times, and it seems to help. I was sober for 2 years, and then I relapsed in 2 months, and then I kept ending up in the hospital. And from the hospital, I decided to come here because I just couldn't go on the way I was going.
The services that Talbot House provides would be housing. You know, some people, you know, they're going through divorces and stuff like that, and they don't have a place to go. So they come here so this way we can get them to a sober house, or if they need to go to a rehab, we can send them to a rehab. Like Charles K. Post, we have all different facilities that, that we could send them to. So we're here to help them in any way possible.
I've been here 3 days so far, and the usual stay is like 5 to 7 days. Because I have outside issues, I could choose to go to a 28-day program, which is what I usually do when I leave here. But I'm anxious to go back to work and help my family, have children, I even have a grandson. So the outside issues are what's leaving me undecided right now. But I have to talk to them, the staff inside, see what they suggest, and we'll come up with a solution.
I myself come from an alcoholic background. My father is an alcoholic, always has, and I myself got caught up into that. So it was always easy for me to look at my father instead of looking at myself. And then I spiraled out of control and got the help that I needed. Thank God for Talbot House. That saved my life. And today I get to work in a facility that saved my life. My faith has helped me so much. I believe a lot of my faith came from my grandmother too. My grandmother died a year and a half ago, 99 years old. And the woman had showed me so much faith. So I was able to grow with the faith that I had and to deepen my horizons with believing. You could believe in anything. You know, as long as you put your mind to it, you can do anything you want.
You can get better. And I've given that message hundreds and hundreds of times. Just because you've come here 50 times or 100 times and people have, there is no reason to lose faith that this can't be the time. Always, always, as long as you're breathing, there's the opportunity to get better.
Thank you for being here, Tony. You do wonderful work. So we heard a little bit about the people that you help, but talk to us about the families.
One of the most important things is for the family to know how to recognize that there's an issue and then to educate themselves on what is helpful to move the substance abuser into treatment or recovery, and then what is not okay and what leads them back into their addiction.
So what do they look for? What does a family look for?
I mean, sometimes you see them physically under the influence, but then there's all sorts of indicators. I have a job, but I have no money. I'm involved with the legal system. I sleep all day. I appear very moody, and there might not be a mental health issue.
How do you deal with the issue of denial, both for the substance user and the parents or the family members who care about their loved one?
I think it's educating the family and educating the substance user to let everybody know there's a different way to live.
And we heard how hard that can be. You know, we heard Eileen talking about how hard sometimes that is. And, you know, I think as a family, you love the person, sometimes to the point of enabling the behavior, like what you were saying about what not to do.
Right.
So how does the family deal with that?
Enabling is one of the biggest issues that we find with families. I was just sharing before about a young female in Talbot House, an opiate user, coming from the streets, putting needles in her arm. And the family doesn't know how to work the treatment process, so there's no release in place, and now the girl is calling her mom and telling her she doesn't like it there, and the mom is coming and bringing her home.
Right.
You know,
So how
so
can
what's
you
the-
help? How do you, yeah.
To educate the family, to hook them up to Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, families and supported treatment programs that Terry Crowell and Linda Ventura know about, that gives families the information they need to stop that enabling process. You know,
Well, I'm going to ask it in a different way. What's wrong with mom bringing the child home? Why is that so terrible?
the child has just come off the street and has been shooting substances in her arm.
Right.
She hasn't received any treatment, any education, no relapse prevention skills, no sober coping skills, so she's going home into the environment she just left to do the same thing she was doing.
So what's the consequence?
Well, the families need to learn to allow those natural consequences to occur, so the substance user hits the bottom and becomes willing to get the help that they
Very
need.
hard.
How do you, as a parent, accept that their child's going to hit the bottom and hope that they don't kill themselves?
And I think that's what keeps a lot of parents
Right.
rolling out the help. Here's $100.
just
So
that-
here, come sleep on the couch, because they're afraid by not doing it, it's going to be their fault. The child died. I went to a group anniversary at a 12-step fellowship, and it was the best thing I ever heard. It was a guy in program, and he thanked Al-Anon for saving his life, because what happened is his parents came to the program and learned how to step back, stop enabling him, and he started suffering the consequences of his addiction, and that enabled him to get sober.
Wow.
So it seems like you know the consequences. You also know the path to recovery. And so it's, when you say educating, because I was questioning, well, what is this educating piece? I think what you're saying then is the education is that if you go down this pathway, you're doing the best you can to have a successful outcome for your loved one.
Well,
And then it can work.
Right. Well, another example. So the son keeps coming to mom to borrow money, and we know that the son is using money to feed his addiction.
Right.
Now educate the mom on maybe not giving the money every time, and now the son will hit the bottom,
Right,
maybe be homeless.
So is that type of education what Talbot House provides for families?
We refer them out. We don't supply family education at
Okay.
Talbot House. We refer them. Seafield has a family education series. Catholic Charities in Comac has a family education series. Families in Supported Treatment, I think, also does that.
So what happens at Talbot House? Someone comes to you.
They call on the phone and they're ready for help. We bring them in, we evaluate them, we keep them in a safe environment. We monitor their vitals, make sure they're safe, and when they're ready, we evaluate them for treatment, and then we will hold them there until they transition to that next phase.
So it's really a gateway. It's really the first step towards
Right.
recovery.
And it seems like the window of opportunity, I'll use that term, may be very small. And
Absolutely.
so talk about how can the parents, the families be prepared for when that moment arises where they now can step into action.
And I love Talbot House, and I always give the number out. I
Right,
do a
well,
lot
give
of
it
work.
out.
631-589-4144.
Great.
It's a 24-hour setting, so if you had that one number and you're armed with it, and that small window of opportunity arrives,
You call.
it's not, oh, call back
Right.
later. It's, we're there, we're ready.
And we'll put that number on
Right,
Vincent's
and
website.
then if we can't help for, say there's a medical issue that we can't address there, we have places that we can refer to. So I always say that's a good starting point.
And what does the window of opportunity look like? So parents are out there. How do they know? How does the person know?
Well, it's usually verbal.
Okay.
They hit a bottom, they're
I'm
in a
ready.
hangover, they don't have money left, so they're in withdrawal, they feel like crud. Help me.
I'm ready.
And that's about the size of the head of a pin.
Right.
And it may change very quickly.
It changes very quickly.
But that's when you call, get them in there, and then you can at least start.
Yes, and plant the seed. I've had people come into Talbot House and they're sitting in the evaluation room and the nurse is taking the vitals and all of a sudden they're, oh, never mind, I changed my mind, and they're at the door.
Wow.
So.
And I would think it's a process and time needs to play out, that there's no quick solution to this.
You heard Maggie saying somebody's been there 50 times.
Yeah.
And you get frustrated with the process of recovery and relapse. I remember new in the field in the 90s, and there was a man who had been there so many times, and I turned to my supervisor and I said, I don't want to give him the bed, let's give somebody new. And he said, guy went to detox 44 times, got sober the 45th time. How do you know?
Right. You
Wow.
don't know when it'll happen.
Wow.
Always.
So it's the one step, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and never losing hope, which is what Eileen said.
So amazing how time can go so quickly. Some tips, suggestions for the family to be able to step in and help a substance abuser.
I think to get to a place where they can name the enabling behaviors and then create some healthy boundaries to stop it, and then be prepared for that small window of opportunity and be armed with the number.
Terrific.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Tony.
My pleasure.
Thank
being
you
here.
for being
and for the
with
work
us.
that you do, and Talbot House.
Yes, good place.
It's a lifesaver, I feel.
Thank
know.
you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back on Family Comes First.
About 10% of Americans report being in recovery from an alcohol or drug abuse issue. So addiction is a treatable disease, and recovery is attainable.
Joining us now to share his experiences is our spiritual advisor, Father Anthony Staganelli, known as Father Tony.
Yeah. Welcome, Father. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you so much for your kind invitation to be part of this segment and to see people with their real struggles, as I've encountered. And I'm sure everybody in this field has experienced other people who are truly struggling, families as well as the people everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I could share with you, Father, it's affected our family, friends. I've lost a good friend of mine who was murdered, involved with trying to buy drugs. Good families, their children. This is horrific. I mean, it's a real epidemic in this country.
It is an epidemic. And seeing it in terms of that, in terms of sickness and disease, and yet still being able to maintain a hope in the midst of people's struggles to say, well, the cure may not be there immediately, and the solutions may not be there immediately, and we may be going through this process of relapse and recovery and relapse and recovery, but we're in it together. And there is no easy fix to any of life's problems. But I think the most important thing is that we're committed to just be present to people and walk with them through it in the good moments and the difficult moments, and to let everybody know, family and addict as well, that they're not alone, and that there's always room and reason for hope.
And like Eileen was saying, don't lose faith. It's that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But it's so prevalent, and I think there's no one I know who doesn't know someone or has suffered this, and it's not a failure of character. I think there used to be this sense that it was something to be embarrassed about, or something to hide, or there was shame, and it's physiological. There's a process, there's recovery, there's hope. So, that stigma, I hope is changing as people access recovery programs like Talbot House and the programs that they refer to, and communities and faith.
Sure, absolutely. And bringing it out from underneath that umbrella of shame is part of the healing process also, because what drives people into those secret corners of our own psyche where we need to medicate ourselves or find relief, and the shame that's involved with that. So drawing it into the light of love, and that they are loved, and that in that moment of God loving us, to find that there is reason for hope, real reason for hope.
And I think it's got to extend beyond the substance abuser trying to figure this out on his or her own, or the immediate family. I think it's the extended family, it's community. I can share with my experiences, one part of me wants to help so much, and then another part of me says, well, I don't want to upset my good friend, or the parent, or a sibling, because I may say the wrong thing. But I think you can't keep it in yourself. We need to communicate and support each other more fully.
Exactly, and that's part of the process. It isn't just this 1, 2, 3, one-size-fits-all solution. It's a process, and what works for one won't work for another, maybe at this time.
Thank you so much, Father, for your thoughts, and we appreciate you always being on our show.
Yeah, and the struggle can be overwhelming, but we've learned so much today. We've learned about different types of treatment programs, providing a variety of care options, from therapeutic methods, pharmaceutical tools, to complementary forms of medicine.
My thought here is addiction need not be a life sentence.
Yes, yes. There's help. There are resources. For a list of the resources we talked about on the show today, and for more information, please visit Vincent's law firm's website at vjrussolaw.com.
Thanks to all our viewers for joining us, and remember, family truly does come first.